Caitlin Clark reminded everybody who she is in the Fever win over the Wings in what was a blowout victory. One where Clark didn't even shoot the ball well again, but she completely dominated the game and shows the difference between her and everyone else through her playmaking.
The Indiana Fever have gone through a stunning transformation, shifting almost overnight from being the team everyone laughed at to the one everyone's watching. Just weeks ago, they were viewed as an afterthought. An easy win on the schedule, a rebuilding team with more questions than answers. But now, they're at the center of the WNBA conversation. And a big reason for that is the emergence of Caitlin Clark. After spending the early part of the season looking like an accessory to the game plan, someone who is present but not fully involved, Clark is finally being given the space to do what she does best. The coaching staff seems to have loosened the reins, and with that, she stepped into the spotlight with confidence, leadership, and the kind of playmaking fans expected all along. Her presence on the court now feels essential, not optional. She's no longer the rookie trying to find her place. She's the engine driving the team forward. And in the process, she's helping turn the Indiana Fever into one of the most exciting and unpredictable teams in the league.
Caitlin Clark said, folks, forget what she's talking about. Today, I'm going to run the show. Today, I'm going to control the pace. Today, I'm going to dictate how this team plays basketball. And in the first half, we saw exactly that. Natasha Howard running the floor. Yeah, you heard that correct. Natasha Howard running the floor. Yeah, I shit you. Folks, fans have a voice. Sometimes when the noise gets too loud and they're tired of hearing from it, they say, let's just buy in a little bit. Let's let Caitlin Clark be Caitlin Clark. Let's not pull the reins back too much. And in that first half, we saw exactly that.
Let's rewind to just a few weeks ago. The Indiana Fever's locker room was filled with tension and uncertainty. You could sense the frustration. Players weren't on the same page. Communication was strained. And the overall mood was heavy. It was the kind of atmosphere where every mistake felt bigger than it was, and any spark of momentum quickly fizzled out. The chemistry on the court mirrored that energy, awkward, disjointed, and frankly hard to watch at times. It didn't feel like a team. It felt like a group of individuals still trying to figure out how to play together. Fast forward to now, and the change is night and day. The Fever are suddenly moving with purpose and flow, like a group that finally trusts each other and understands how to win together. Their plays are smoother, their energy is more focused, and their confidence is growing with every game. They're playing with unity, grit, and a sense of belief that simply wasn't there before. It's not perfect, but it's progress. And that progress has turned a once chaotic team into a cohesive, determined squad that's starting to live up to its potential.
That's what we're talking about when we are referring to Caitlin Clark running the show. Caitlin Clark running the offense, being the innovator of offense, the distributor of offense for the Indiana Fever. This is exactly what we mean right here. This game was an absolute blowout. Dallas Wings didn't know what hit them. Everybody ate in this game.
The real shift in the Indiana Fever's season began when Diana Taurasi packed her bags and took her me-first mindset with her. From the moment she arrived, it was clear she saw herself as the main attraction, like she was walking into a headlining performance with the spotlight already on her. She carried herself with the kind of swagger that suggested the team would orbit around her, not the other way around. But reality hit hard. This wasn't her stage, and the Fever weren't her supporting cast. The team already had a clear focal point in Caitlin Clark, an emerging star with the talent, poise, and vision to lead a franchise. Taurasi tried to insert herself into the center of that dynamic, but it clashed from the start. It was like watching someone try to replace a museum masterpiece with a casual snapshot and expecting everyone to applaud. Her style didn't match the team's needs, and her presence created more confusion than clarity. Once she left, things began to fall into place. The locker room settled. The power struggles disappeared. And most importantly, The team could finally start to form an identity around the player who was always meant to be at its core. Caitlin was no longer in anyone's shadow. She was leading with confidence, and the rest of the squad was finally in sync. That departure wasn't just a roster move. It was the spark that allowed the Fever to start moving forward together.
So, the Indiana Fever just released her, cut their losses, right? And I hear these analysts saying stuff like, they should have held out for a trade, or I wish they had got a trade for her. She was literally untradeable, right? Like, what team would give up any of their core players for a player that's past their twilight? They picked up R.A. McDonald, or re-signed R.A. McDonald, who we all saw was a spark plug just a couple weeks ago. She's an upgrade compared to Duana Bonner.
Bonner's departure wasn't just a simple roster adjustment. It was a full-blown reset for the Indiana Fever. In fact, calling it a personnel change doesn't do it justice. It was more like a spiritual cleanse, an exorcism of everything that had been holding the team back. The very moment she cleared out her locker, it was as if a heavy fog lifted. You could almost feel a physical shift in the energy, like someone had cracked open a window in a stuffy room. The tension that had quietly hovered over the locker room for weeks finally released, and the collective sigh of relief from the players and staff was so loud and so real, it might as well have triggered wind sensors across the city. Bonner carried herself like she was still the franchise player, stepping into the room with a confidence that bordered on entitlement. She demanded attention, operated on her own terms, and treated the team dynamic like an afterthought. But this wasn't her team. This was a squad in the process of building something new, something that revolved around a rising star in Caitlin Clark. Bonner never adjusted to that shift. She played as if she were still the centerpiece, even though the puzzle was clearly being built around someone else. Her style clashed with the team's vision, and her presence disrupted more than it helped. Once she was gone, it was as though the Fever were finally free to be themselves. The locker room found its rhythm. Conversations were easier, practices were lighter, and players began to trust one another in ways that weren't possible before. Caitlin Clark, in particular, seemed to come alive. No longer overshadowed or second-guessed, she stepped confidently into her leadership role, and the rest of the team followed. What Bonner's exit really gave the Fever wasn't just space, it was clarity. It allowed the team to move forward without hesitation, without mixed signals, and without someone constantly pulling focus in the wrong direction. It was the moment everything began to change.
Because we've seen a huge change. We've seen a huge change from the Indiana Fever over the last 6 quarters. And especially in the fourth quarter, in the Dallas Wings game. And there were 2 players in particular that I have said that their style of play, regardless of how they're playing, is not going to work long term. And those 2 players had unbelievable games yesterday.
If you're enjoying this, make sure to subscribe. Because what happened in Indiana wasn't just about cutting a player. It was about cutting loose the weight that had been dragging the team to the bottom of the standings. Bonner's exit wasn't a loss. It was a release. A festering splinter finally pulled out. A toxic cloud finally cleared. With her gone, the Fever could finally breathe again, free from the ego, the drama, and the constant tension that had quietly smothered the locker room. And then something amazing happened. The mood lifted. The energy shifted. Practices became lighter. Games more joyful. The body language on the court told the story. Players who had looked checked out and frustrated were suddenly dialed in, encouraging each other, smiling, laughing, and playing like the game actually meant something to them again. High fives, chest bumps, shared celebration. It all came rushing back like a wave of fresh air. Without Bonner's shadow looming over every possession, every huddle, every play, the team finally had room to grow. The weight of her negativity had been replaced with belief, excitement, and a sense of unity. And just like that, the Indiana Fever started playing the kind of basketball that fans could connect with, the kind that reminds people why they love the game in the first place.
This team is like a sorority group. I'm not joking. They are so closely bonded, like the energy that all of them have with each other. There is not like where you see and someone looks a little disconnected. This is literally the most tight-knit team. I'm telling you, and I actually think all the discourse or the people trying to create discourse offline or outside the locker room only makes them tighter. And throughout the training session, I saw multiple times where, they were like laughing and mucking around and just completely like high-fiving and actually speaking of the high-five.
Enter Sophie Cunningham, the walking, talking jolt of energy the Indiana Fever didn't know they desperately needed. While critics were already penning the season's obituary, Cunningham came crashing in like a triple shot of adrenaline. She didn't just join the fight. She grabbed the entire team by the collar and lit a fire under them, shouting loud and clear, "Asterisk, we're not done yet." Asterisk, her impact was immediate, loud, and impossible to ignore. She didn't ease her way into a leadership role. She exploded into it. 1 minute, she was the new addition. The next, she was the team's emotional engine, rallying cry, defensive enforcer, and unofficial team therapist all in one. Her presence in the locker room and on the court brought the kind of intensity that couldn't be faked. Cunningham didn't offer quiet pep talks or soft encouragement. She came armed with pure, unfiltered passion. When the team needed a boost, she didn't just spark it. She ignited it like a flare in a dark room. During timeouts, while some players tried to catch their breath, Cunningham was on her feet, eyes wide, sketching out imaginary plays midair like she was racing the clock in a halftime thriller. Her energy was contagious, her drive undeniable, and her leadership, though loud and unorthodox, gave the Fever exactly what they'd been missing, a relentless force of will who refused to let them fold.